Hi there, it's Christy with the Chirp YouTube channel. Let's talk about defiance today. There are lots of kids with diagnoses or without who demonstrate defiance and who are really difficult for their families to figure out. Today I'm just going to talk about young kids who demonstrate defiance because that is my specialty, and that is the area where it's easiest to change patterns. Defiance in a young child is a sign that the whole family needs to get involved in changing the dynamic and the style of interaction in their family. With defiance, it's important to jump right on it, get it taken care of, because once patterns get set in place, it's very difficult to break them. If your child gets convinced at the age of 2 that she is more powerful than you because she can change your mind and change your behavior with her own behavior, that is a hard pattern to change, and it will take more out of you to change that pattern than it will if you jump on it right away and get it ironed out. Today I'm going to use the example of a child who comes home with the family and mom says, "Hang up your coat on the hook," and the child says, "No." That is an example of defiance. There's no good reason for it. She's not having a sensory moment. She's not unable to understand the communication that's coming her way. She's not physically incapable of hanging up her coat. She just doesn't want to do what you told her to do. A lot of children who tend to be oppositional in this way believe for some reason that they are equally powerful to the adults in their lives. This frustrates me a lot because when I see it in my students, it's hard to explain to a child that they are not as powerful as an adult and why their opinions matter less than the opinions of the adult in the situation. It doesn't matter to me if my student thinks that it's safe to stand on the table, or that it's fine to stand on the table, or say the F word at the top of his lungs. I don't care about his opinion in those matters because I'm the adult. I have a lot more experience. My brain is fully formed, and I can actually see the long-term results of those behaviors. I can imagine in my mind all of the different things that might happen because of those things that the child is doing. Children cannot do that, and we can't explain to them all of those things because they can't understand it yet. They haven't been where we are. I have been where she is. I know those behaviors are not going to help you later in life, and I need to help you learn different behaviors that will aid you later in life. There's something about these kids who are defiant and oppositional, they just don't get that. And the only way that they are going to understand it is if I am the grown-up and I help them do what I say. And there is no choice. They don't get to negotiate with me. They don't get to do it their way if their way is different from my way. It doesn't happen. I don't let it happen, not even once. And that is really difficult because, of course, kids are persistent and kids don't get tired as quickly as I do. So I have to make it my mission to be more stubborn than the child is. And that takes a lot of self-control and a lot of effort. We're going to talk about a few strategies that will help you dealing with this type of situation. And the first one is, don't ever ask a child if she is ready to hang up her coat or if she wants to hang up her coat. No, she's not ready to, and no, she doesn't want to. That doesn't matter. It's time to hang up your coat. And that's how you need to phrase it. You need to get in the habit of saying, it's time to hang up your coat is the best way to phrase what isn't actually a request. It is a statement. It's time to hang up your coat. We don't necessarily want to make our comment into a request because a request can be denied. And that is what these children are doing. They consider your comment, your command, or your direction a request, and they deny it. No, I don't want to hang up your coat. So we need to make sure that it's not a request. It is a demand, a command. It sounds a little sort of fascist, But we are the adults, and we need to make sure that especially the children who are defiant or oppositional, especially they get the message that they are not in control of the family, they're not in control of you, they're not in control of their teachers, they're not in control of the world. I don't want them to feel like lesser human beings. I do want them to realize that the adults are the ones who get to make the decisions at this point in their lives. Another strategy is to give your child choices, but only ones that are appropriate. So you might say, would you like to hang your coat on the upper hook or the lower hook? Would you like to put your coat on the hook or in the closet? All of these are appropriate places to hang her coat. She gets to pick which one. Sometimes we find that the dynamic in families of kids who tend to be more oppositional is very forceful and domineering. And the kids who are showing defiance are trying to say, I'm not like that. I don't want to do it that way. What are some other choices? I need to express my individuality. It is appropriate to give kids choices. We want them to learn to make good choices. We need to help them to narrow down their choices to only the good ones, especially when they're very young. Now we're going to come to strategy 3. And this one is one of my very favorites. And it comes when the child has already said no. We've gotten to that point. There's the defiant no. She's not going to hang up her coat. This is where I say, yep. And I take her hand and we pick up the coat together and we hang it up. Then we're finished and we move on and we do what we need to do. This is why it's important to start young. I can't do that with a 15-year-old, probably. I can do it with a 2 or 3-year-old. This is one of the many reasons why defiant behavior left to rot becomes much worse with time. Because a 15-year-old, you can't force the issue at some point. They're gonna do what they're gonna do, and you didn't teach them early enough that their behavior is more flexible. I'm not saying that it can't be changed in a 15-year-old. I am saying it's much harder. So in this case, once again, if the child says no, we do what's called a hand over hand. You can say beforehand, do you want to do it yourself or do you want some help? Most of the time, a child does not want help because she wants to show independence, so she will often hang it up herself in this case. However, a very determined child might not, and might instead choose to still stand there and not do what you have asked, in which case we have to help, because the rule is we hang up our coats when we come in the house. So I will help you. We don't have to get angry. We don't have to be stern or use a scary voice or a mean face. We just have to help her hang up her coat. No big deal. My next hint is do not negotiate with the child. This means the child is a terrorist. When a child is in control of your family, pretty much the rest of you are the hostages. And you are trying to negotiate her to be less violent or less upsetting or to have fewer people hostage. It doesn't sound very pleasant because it's not. It's a bad situation for a family to get into. So, don't negotiate. If your child comes in the door and you say, hang up your coat, and she says, no, don't say, well, can you at least put it on the bench then? Because you have just negotiated with the terrorist. Don't do it. And if she says, I don't want to hang it up, but I'll put it on the bench, you have to say, no, I asked you to hang it up. We hang up our coats when we come in the house. There's the hook. And then, of course, if she doesn't do it, we hand over hand help her do it. Doesn't have to be hard. It can be very simple. One of the worst things you can do in this situation is nothing. Of course, I have to rule out all the things like hurt your child, swear, be super mean and frightening. We don't want any of those things. I just assume you're not going to do those things. Other than all of those things, please don't do nothing in this situation. If your child stands there and is defiant, it needs to get fixed. So don't just ignore it. Don't just say, oh well, okay, I guess your Coke can stay on the floor. That's just not good parenting right there. Even though I know sometimes we do it because we're tired and sometimes it happens, it needs to not be a pattern of happening, or that behavior will get worse. We also need to keep in mind that if your child has communication delays, sometimes she might not understand what the question is. There's a kid in my class who comes into my classroom every time I see him, throws his shoes on the floor. Every time we say shoes in the cubby, and we hand over hand help him pick his shoes up and put them in his cubby. He does not have the cognitive ability or the language ability at this point to understand what it means, shoes in cubby. We're practicing that. We tell him shoes in cubby, and then we act shoes in cubby. And these two things together are going to meld together in his mind, and they're going to mean the same thing. So eventually, when we say shoes in cubby, he will do it himself, whether he understands what the words mean or not, because those phrases, the phrase and the action, are linked together. So if your kid does have some communication delays, especially with the understanding of directions, make sure to say what you want the child to do and show the child what you want to do at the same time, with your own coat or with her coat, or both. Also keep in mind that your child may have another reason for not following your direction. Perhaps he did not actually hear the direction because he's spaced out in his own little world. Perhaps he can't reach the hook and you just didn't notice. Perhaps the coat is very wet and it's inappropriate to hang it on a hook because we have to drape it somewhere to let it dry. So if your child is not following one of your directions, take a peek around first, make sure that it's actual defiance and that it's not just another issue that might make logical sense. Make sure that it actually is defiance that you're addressing with these strategies and that it's not some other issue that just happens to look like defiance in that moment. I have put a few more resources in the information box below this video on this topic. So if this is a topic that piques your interest because maybe there's a child in your life who tends towards the defiant and oppositional, I think it will be helpful to you. Thank you for watching this video today. Thank you for wanting to be a better adult for the kids in your life and for wanting to help them grow up to be the most delightful, functional, happy, positive, friendly adults that they possibly can be. I am grateful for you. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.